The Sabbath has always been very special to me. And to help you understand that, I need to tell you a little bit about my family, specifically about my dad. My dad, Jim Finley, was born in 1923 during the Great Depression. He lived for 89 years and he was never able to figure out where he came from. He remembers as a child he was just kind of passed from one relative to another, and he always felt like a burden wherever he went. One of his earliest memories was riding on a train as a young boy all by himself, traveling from his uncle's place in Georgia all the way to New York City to meet his mother, or who he would later find out might not have even been his mother, and he never ever had a clue as to who his father might have been. But anyway, so here he was, a little boy, 9 years old, 10 years old, on this long train ride from Georgia all the way to New York City. And of course, towards the end, he fell asleep. And the train came to the end of the line in Jersey City, and somebody was shaking him. He remembers somebody shaking him, telling him, "This is the last stop, the last stop." You imagine how frightened and afraid to be from Georgia back in the country. Now he's in Jersey City, and he got off that train with shaking legs and found his way to the train depot. And I don't know if he had something pinned on him where he was supposed to be. No cell phones in those days. But somehow they put him on a train back to New York City. And he felt like there wasn't going to be anybody there to meet him. But out of the crowd came his mom, I guess, named Beulah. We'll never know. But she took him back to this very cramped, very dark apartment, and he met his stepfather, Dave, for the first time. The next morning, my dad went out for a little walk, got beat up in the neighborhood, in the area there. I don't even know if you'd call it a neighborhood, on the city block, because the other kids were laughing at his accent, at his Georgia accent. And so his stepfather beat him up again and said, "You don't let anybody do that to you. I'm going to give you another beating," and pushed him out the door. So that was his life, living in poverty in a graceless environment, all over Harlem, Hell's Kitchen, Coney Island. When he was 17, he lied about his age and joined the Navy and got out of the city. And he was actually on the ship that photographed the testing of the atomic bomb in World War II. I hope you can see this. And God actually had a plan for his life. My dad learned to work on machines, machinist first mate. And when he was stationed in Connecticut, he met my mom. They were married on a snowy day in January. And of course, those first few years, they had to spend quite a bit of time apart. They were 20 years old when they got married. They were married for 66 years. But anyway, my dad finally got out of the Navy on his 23rd birthday, and they were able to settle into a nice little comfortable routine there in Connecticut. And when I was a little girl, we lived in Connecticut right across from my grandparents, and my older brother Mark and my older sister Dale really looked out for me. And then later, my little sister Holly would be born, and I'd look out for her. But anyway, there in Connecticut, my dad took a job working for Bostage Company. That's where they make staples. And he met a Seventh-day Adventist man named Al Lyon. My dad worked the night shift. Al Lyon worked the day shift. And as Al Lyon was passed the orders to my dad and explained to him what he needed to do, he could sense that my dad had a searching and an honest heart. And so he recommended that my dad take some Bible studies through the mail. And that's what happened. My dad took those studies, and he studied for 3 years, to be sure. And when he learned about the Sabbath, and the Sabbath being from sundown Friday night until sundown Saturday night, my dad knew in his heart that he could never, ever work another Friday night again, that he could not break the Sabbath. And so he was coming home from that Bostage Corporation one Friday night, and he literally pulled the car over, he said a prayer, he said, "God, I commit my life to you." Well, that was not an easy decision. He had 3 children at that time, and my mom was expecting the 4th child. But my dad made a commitment. With God's blessing, my dad, who had never even had the opportunity to graduate from high school, he told me they moved around so much, he went to 17 schools in 11 years. So he never graduated high school. But he was able to start his own business to keep the Sabbath. He got a couple of machines and just started working. And I remember when we were little, we were quite poor. You know, my grandpa was the only one working there for my dad, and my mom kept the books. But my dad was committed to the Sabbath, and so he ran that little machine shop, and he just kept his faith and kept trusting God. Well, God blessed him, and that business continued to grow. Eventually, my dad was able to buy his own building. He had 24 people working for him. God blessed Finley Machine Shop, put all 4 of his kids through Seventh-day Adventist colleges. So you see, the Sabbath is important to me. By keeping it, I honor the faith of my dad. I remember how far he came, his difficult childhood, and how God blessed his life. By keeping the Sabbath every week, I thank God for showing grace to my family, and I renew my faith in God the Creator, who always does what's best for us.